China's population is shrinking, fewer babies, an aging society. It is a common story in today's world. But beneath this trend lies a demographic distortion that makes the numbers much worse. Not just fewer births, but a decades-long artificial skewing of who is born, creating a missing woman crisis that haunts the nation. And now, China's population has been falling by millions of people for the past few years. China's fertility rate has plummeted, well below the 2.1 replacement level. It is now around 1.0. It is lower than almost any other nation in the world. Fewer young people means a shrinking population, a shrinking workforce, immense pressure on pensions, healthcare, and potentially slower economic growth. And China only recorded about 9 million births in 2023, a record low since 1949. And it is a stark drop from the 17 to 18 million that were common decades ago. Many Western nations also face low birth rates, like the US with a birth rate of 1.6 and Germany at 1.5. But these nations also rely on immigration to offset some of their losses, while China doesn't really have this option with strict immigration controls. And China has experienced negative net migration for decades, which figures showing a net outflow of hundreds of thousands of people annually. But here's where China's situation becomes uniquely dangerous: the gender imbalance at birth. For decades, a combination of a restrictive one-child policy from 1979 to 2015 and a strong cultural preference for males led to widespread gender selection. The natural ratio of births is typically around 105 males for every 100 females born. However, in China, the ratio has become dangerously skewed. From around 1997 to 2014, the official statistics, which may be undercounted, show around 117 males for every 100 females born. So let's do some math here. If you have 117 males born for every 100 females, that means about 54% of births were male. If you look at 100 babies born, that's 54 boys, 46 girls. It doesn't sound like a catastrophic difference until you project it across hundreds of millions of births over decades. And this creates what some call the missing woman. And even today, official numbers still put it around 110 boys born for every 100 girls. But let's go back to when it was peak male selection. We had about 54% males to 46% females. So you have 54 men vying for 46 women. This leaves out 8 men out of 54 without a potential partner. And this is about 15% of the male population. Estimates suggest there could be as many as 40 million more men of marriageable age than women in China by 2030. But the problem compounds. It's not just about surplus men. In a society where you do not have gender selection, about 49 out of 100 people are potential mothers. But in China, at its peak selection rate, it was only 46 females. You've already reduced your pool of potential childbearers by about 6 to 8% before you even consider their individual choices about having children. This means that the next generation automatically starts with a smaller capacity for reproduction, creating a downward demographic spiral that's harder to escape. If China's total fertility rate is 1.0 and the female proportion of the reproductive age cohort is 6 to 8% smaller than it should be, the effective birth output is even further diminished. That reduction in mothers could mean a percentage reduction in actual birth, compounding generation after generation, and potentially shrinking the population far more than projections might realize. The economic and social ramifications are staggering. A shrinking workforce is already a reality. China's working age population, 16 to 59, has been declining for years, falling by tens of millions. This puts upward pressure on wages, but it also means fewer people to support a rapidly aging population. The number of Chinese citizens aged 16 above reached nearly 300 million people by the end of 2023, and accounting for over 21% of total population. And this is going to likely rise to over 400 million, or nearly a third of the population by 2040. And this demographic imbalance has geopolitical implications. where societies with large numbers of unmarriageable young men can be more prone to internal instability, even possibly aggression. The societal stress on millions of men unable to form families, coupled with the economic burdens of an aging population, creates a challenging environment for any government. And this could even impact global supply chains, as China still manufactures nearly 30% of the world's goods. Add on to this, China already has a youth unemployment of around 15%, and it creates more stress and more tension on these young men. Regarding issues with birth rates, China is very aware, and they've gotten rid of their one-child policy, and then they moved to a two-child policy and then a three-child policy in 2021. And they now have incentives to encourage births. However, these measures have largely failed to reverse the trend. Birth rates continue to fall dramatically even after these policy shifts. For example, after the three-child policy, births in 2022 fell by about 10% from the previous year, and then they fell 5% again in 2023. And birth rates have fallen massively in China over the past 10 years. And the reasons are complex. The high cost of raising a kid, changing social norms, preferring smaller families, perhaps even the youth unemployment issue, which creates a level of instability for the future. And maybe it's the sheer lack of potential mothers due to decades of gender selection at birth. So we are at a point where it's like trying to get more water from a well whose source is rapidly depleting and was already artificially restricted in some ways. The fundamental problem is that the cohort of women now entering their prime childbearing years are smaller than they should be. This is a demographic reality that cannot be undone quickly. And it will take generations for the ratio of men to women to normalize. And even then, the echo of the missing woman will reverberate through the population numbers for the rest of this century. Projections forecast China's population could even potentially fall below 500 million by 2100. So when we talk about a potential demographic collapse for China, it's not just a story of falling birth rates. It's a story compounded by a gender imbalance that has effectively pre-programmed a deeper decline. This isn't just China's problem. A significantly diminished and socially stressed China will have profound implications for the global economy and the future balance of power. The world relied on China's growth for decades. A China grappling with these demographic challenges may be a very different global player. And the irony is that the cultural drive for sons to continue the family line has, on a national scale, severely jeopardized the future of countless family lines and the country as a whole, because there are just not enough daughters to become wives and mothers. This has been Blinded by Logic. Thanks for watching.